I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Welcome to Amazing FBA. Today's show is brought to you by Escape the Rat Race, run by Christian Rodwell. Escape the Rat Race is there to do one job, help people escape the day job and create financial freedom for themselves. I'm going to be collaborating with Christian to run physical training in London, England on the 21st of April. So that's what I'm talking about now. If you can't make it to those things, the location or date, just spool forward and listen to the rest of the show. If you think you might be able to make that, listen up, because we are doing in-person training in a very small group, maximum 6 people. We've already sold 4 places. And the purpose is that is very, very simple, to make sure you get over the biggest roadblock, which is getting something selling online, on Amazon, I should say, and then basically deciding which product you're going to be able to private label. That's the purpose of the day. Very, very powerful, very simple. You're going to be focused because it's in person. You're not going to be distracted in the online environment or your office or whatever other place you might work on a business. Plus, you'll be free to discuss things absolutely openly because we'll all sign a non-disclosure agreement, and it's a small group, not a massive Facebook group. You're going to get also an amazing deal this time round and this time round only, which is ongoing support in the form of 3 months of free membership of the Zero to Hero Mastermind, which meets once a month, mostly Saturdays as well, in London. So you need to be able to get to London, of course, to make this work for you. Plus 90 minutes of online mentoring or in-person mentoring with me personally. So you don't need to get it to London for that. So it's a very powerful package. I believe that this is going to be the most powerful way to move you forward out there, simply because offline is way more focused than online, and the hand-holding and the ongoing implementation support is really what makes the difference. So if you want to check that out, go to amazingfba.com/workshop. If the thing is already sold out, don't panic, because we will have an email sign up there and we'll keep you posted. If you are interested in future training, we're definitely going to be running it again because there is a need out there. Thanks so much for listening. Now on with the show. Hi there. Today I want to talk about the subject of a small 4-letter word, and that word is fear. I believe that it's probably between you and a successful Amazon business if you haven't actually started a business yet. And what I mean by a business is something that actually makes you money. And I'm sorry to say that if you are still researching, or even if you've ordered product, I don't think you're in business yet. I think you're in the sort of pre-launch phase, which is fine. It's got to be done. But if you're stuck there, I think that you may well benefit from listening to this pretty short little episode. First thing to say is that you've got to admit that you've got the fear. So this is a sort of 3 phases, or 2 phases, if you like, of dealing with this. So phase A is admit you have the fear. If you don't admit it, you can't deal with it, right? Call it what it is. Don't just call it research, because you're going around in circles for months. You're either confused or in fear. So it's either a lack of focus or it's fear. I would say it's one of those 2. So what I would do is this: get it on paper, get it down on paper, preferably in black and white with a pen on paper, because I think your brain works differently that way. If you need to, write it on an iPhone, type it, do whatever you need to do, get it down. And then categorize it into real or imagined, because some stuff like, the world is not like to catch on fire. You're probably not going to get sued into the Stone Age on the basis of 10 product sales, okay, by some angry American consumers. If that's your fear, then you've got to get it real. But then the other thing is you've got to start getting around with fears that are real. If you find a fear that you think is real, you've got to evaluate the risk, as in the probability of it happening, and the size. How bad would it be? For example, if somebody were to cut themselves with a knife of yours that you're selling on Amazon — by the way, it's very hard to sell knives, so don't sell knives. But let's say you've got a product that could cut somebody, and somebody did actually cut themselves and they actually sued your company. The likelihood of that is very unlikely. I've not heard anyone I know lots of people who sell potentially dangerous things. I've not heard of anyone getting sued. It does occasionally happen, of course. So the likelihood is very low. How big a problem would it be if it happened? If they sued you for £1 million or something, $1 million, it would be a very, very big size problem. And then you need to evaluate for each fear that is real, the size of the outcome, how bad would it be, and the probability, right? The possibility of getting an intellectual property complaint, and then how likely is that? That's more likely than somebody suing you. And how big a problem would it be? Well, you might have to potentially destroy that set of inventory that you had in, etc. So that could be quite bad. And then the other thing to do, the real professional thing to do, is to put your fears on paper, examine the ones that actually have some reality behind them, evaluate the size of the risk, and then you put a contingency plan in there. So start with the highest size risk and the highest probability risks, and then put a plan in place. For example, if you're worried about getting sued, well, several things. Number one, form a company rather than being a sole trader so that you have that protection around your legal liability. Number two, get legal and product liability insurance, which you should have anyway if you're selling on Amazon.com. That is in the US, but I would advise that anywhere. Not particularly expensive, gives you peace of mind, and it's a professional thing to do as well. Number three, make sure your supplier choice is professional. Number four, make sure your quality control and inspection procedures are good, and you absolutely minimize that, and so forth. And then you repeat that with the high risk but low probability things, and so you keep going down the order of things. So basically, that's the phase B part, which is to actually turn things from fears into legitimate business risks that you then plan for. Let's come back to the biggest block that I think most people I talk to experience, which is product research. If you're going round and round in circles, that's probably because you are fearful, perhaps rightly. Again, you've got to get this stuff on paper. You sense that you're not on solid ground. You're not sure whether the thing you are considering selling is going to sell or not. And because of that uncertainty, you just keep going around in circles, and you never feel sure of your choice, so you quit. So I think the solution to that is to make sure you have a system that's tried and tested. And then the other thing is that you are fearful of putting too much money down on one single order. And I think that that's a rational fear. You should test it against the market. And then the solution to that is have a way of testing against the market. If that's you, then I've got good news for you. I'm running a specifically focused one-day workshop soon, which is going to be focused on exactly this big roadblock of how do I choose a niche market, and then taking that forward to finding suppliers. We won't have time to deal with finding great suppliers or the product launch. It's just a one-day training. We will be offering future days of training for the product launch and indeed the sourcing, how to find the products from suppliers bits. Not because I'm trying to do some clever upsell or anything clever like that. We want to just start small and grow from there and adjust to you, our market. So if that interests you, you can go over to www.amazingfba.com/workshop and check that out. I'm running it in conjunction with Christian Rodwell of Escape the Rat Race. I have to say, this is London based. It's online. It's not online, it's in-person training. There is a lot of online training, and I'm an affiliate for not cheap but very, very fine training produced by Adam Hudson called Reliable Income. And if you need to know more about Adam, you can just go to amazingfba.com/Adam. And if you want to check out Reliable Income, amazingfba.com/reliable, RELIABLE. But they are expensive and it is online. If you're wanting a more affordable solution that is an in-person course, then check out our workshop, because I honestly believe that a lot of people are simply stuck in fear, and it's because they sense at some level quite rightly that they're not ready to go yet, and they need to have a system that they can trust, and then that will move them forward, and they'll actually get a business launched and get a product launched and actually get turnover, get feedback from the market, and then be able to adjust, and they're off to the races. They're actually in business then, and then they can adjust as they go. And my experience is that it's extremely more likely, I was going to say infinitely, but that's exaggerated, but it's probably 10 times more likely that you'll actually build a business once you're actually got something selling and you can adjust, than if you just sit on the sidelines doing quotes research, which after a while is, I think, another word for fear. So if that's you, don't suffer in silence. Get some help. If you can't get to that training, or you already have had training but you're still stuck in that, then you might want to consider the mastermind. amazingfba.com/mastermind, MASTERMIND. Check that out. We still have some spaces for the Zero to Hero Mastermind, which I've talked about in other places. Thanks very much for listening. Take care. Speak to you soon.